Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we're going to be going through the polls from Saturday, October 6th through Monday, October 8th, which pretty much cover a number of topics ranging from Senate races all the way down to the direction of the country. And we're going to pretty much go ahead and take a look at individual races and what they mean for the 2018 midterm elections. To be completely honest with you, looking at these numbers, the GOP definitely is rebounding in terms of the Senate compared to where they were before. My first example is the Texas Senate race, which actually showed Beto O'Rourke leading by plus 2% in one poll that was not published on Real Clear Politics for whatever reason. The most recent poll shows Ted Cruz leading by 5, and at the same time, there was a poll taken on Sunday that shows Ted Cruz leading by 6%. So overall, these numbers aren't necessarily the worst for the GOP. A 5 to 6% lead in a state like Texas could eventually mean that a 9 to 10 point lead, win for the GOP is possible, or just they underperform by 3% as they did, 4% as they did in 2016, and it goes down to Cruz +1 or Cruz +2, which is still a win for the GOP regardless. Yes, this race is getting a little bit closer. In fact, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the numbers here. But if we look at where the polling data started off, Cruz pretty much always had a consistent lead. I mean, he's led in every one of these polls that are published by Real Clear Politics. However, the leads have narrowed down at times. Cruz led originally in the first poll +3, and now he leads by, in the most recent Quinnipiac poll, +9. So either he gained voters or Beto O'Rourke lost voters, and that doesn't seem too reasonable. Yes, we were looking way early in 2018, and Ted Cruz may not have been as popular as he is now, or he may have been more unpopular, and it was just the polling bunch. However, Ted Cruz is probably going to win the Senate race just looking at the numbers alone, basing it off that alone. You cannot purely base off a race based off the numbers themselves, but looking at them, you can pretty much all come to a general conclusion that Ted Cruz would win the Senate race. I'm not saying that he's going to win. I'm not saying Beto O'Rourke is going to win either. However, it seems a little bit more likely that Ted Cruz is going to win the Senate race at the end of the day. But looking at these polls again, they are closer than they should be in a state like Texas, so we're probably going to see a little bit closer of a race leading into the final days of the election season. Covered the Texas Senate race, so we can move over to the Texas governor race. Greg Abbott now leading by 20%. Before, the Democrats thought they could possibly have a chance. No real national Democrats brought a lot of attention to this race. I mean, just looking at the numbers there, they knew this race was gone from before, but clearly Greg Abbott is doing very well. This race has moved into the safe column. Before, I had this one in the likely column in my videos. It has now moved into the safe column for the GOP with good reason, too. Now we can move over to the Michigan 11th District, Congressional District election here, which shows the Republican leading +6%. So I do not think that, the Democrat is leading by 7%. I read the wrong poll right there. Right now, I do think that this is currently held by a GOP representative. Still, though, that one goes towards the Democratic Party, according to this new New York Times poll / Siena poll that shows the Democrat leading by 7%. So that's good for the Democratic Party there. But we can move over to the North Carolina 13th District. This is the one where the GOP leads +6%. And looking at that race, I believe Bud may be the incumbent. Yes, he is the incumbent, and he leads +6% according to the New York Times poll. So a little bit closer of a race than before, a leaning GOP seat, not really contested in any elections, even going back to 2010, which probably went. So it actually went to the Democrat there, but it probably was because he was the incumbent. But now it is a lean GOP district, and redistricting could have occurred. But right now, looking at that 13th district, the Republican incumbent leads by 6%, which is not really a good sign for Democrats, but they aren't really eyeing up that many races in North Carolina. Over in North Carolina's 9th district, though, the Republican is losing by 4%. No incumbent here. But overall, we're going to get very conflicting data. Survey USA says overall a +4, then +7, and then Harris leads by 5, according to the New York Times poll. I would go with the New York Times poll because they show you exactly where they're getting their data from, and it's a lot more accurate in terms of showing, in comparison, in previous history. So I would trust New York Times over Survey USA just based off their polling history. But again, you can trust whichever pollster you want. Just overall, we're getting a little bit of conflicting data from that congressional district. In the President Trump job approval rating, CNN has Trump at a 43% approval rating. Gallup has him at a 43% approval rating. And then Rasmussen Reports has a 51% approval rating. Not really the most accurate. I really do not think the president has a positive 4% approval rating whatsoever. Looking at the rest of these polls, yes, Rasmussen could be correct, but It's a very, very low chance that Rasmussen is the only correct poll out of the rest of them. Now, for the direction of the country, that really isn't too important, but Wrong Track leads by 9%, which, again, isn't too unexpected considering the way that we're looking at our country right now, and many Democrats are currently opposed to the way that the country is going in, but it's also better than where it was under the Obama administration. Now, for the Sunday, October 7th polls, we have polls from Arizona, Tennessee, Texas, and New Jersey. All Senate elections. Now, the reason why that is important is because a number of these races, these 4 races, are going to be pretty contested leading into 2018. New Jersey may be a shocker to some, but right now Menendez leads by plus 10%. That race has moved from toss-up to lean Democratic. And we go over to the Arizona Senate race, which shows the Democrat leading by 3%, which is pretty surprising. But in the same network, they show that Marsha Blackburn leads by 8% in the state of Tennessee, and in Texas, Cruz leads plus 6%. So I've discussed Texas already, so it really doesn't need any more going back over. But for the Tennessee Senate race, this is a race that many Democrats think that they could possibly get. The overall average is Blackburn plus 2.7. Overall, throughout the entire campaign season, Phil Bredesen was leading up until October 3rd, 2018, when the Republicans officially took the lead here. However, if we go back to 2006, right, the incumbent he was filling an open seat. Corker led by 6% and ended up winning by 2.7%. So right now, Marsha Blackburn is actually leading by 2.7%. Similar numbers there, but if the Democrats are able to outperform by 3.3%, as they did in 2006, the last time there was a Democratic wave year in a midterm election, then Phil Bredesen technically could win here. But right now, these new numbers are not looking too beneficial if they continue to trend at a plus 8, possibly plus 10 in the future, looking into this general election for the Tennessee Senate race and going into the Arizona Senate race. Again, that one is a race that pretty much is contested. This is probably going to be one of the few times they could elect a Democratic senator. If we're looking at the polling numbers here, Democrat lead, Sinema led every single one of these polls until after the primaries. McSally led by 0.3%, and then now Kirsten Sinema is starting to gain traction again and starting to lead. The overall average is Kirsten Sinema plus 3.4. That is not bad. I mean, this is a Democrat in a Republican state. The last time, actually, if we go back to 2016, wasn't too contested, okay? McCain won by 12.9%. Jeff Flake won by 3% back in 2012, and that was a presidential election year where Democratic excitement is all the way up compared to where it is now. If we go back to the 2006 Senate race in the state of Arizona, John Kyle won by 9.8%. That was the last time it was a Democratic wave year. So overall, looking at these numbers, it didn't look too bad for the Republicans back then. But right now, the Democrat is actually leading in almost every single poll that's in the recents. And then if we go back, let's open up the all Arizona Senate polls. McSally led by plus 1%, then plus 3%, and then it went all the way back to a Sinema lead in all of these polls. So right now, when we're looking at that data, Arizona definitely has a shot at going blue compared to where before it really didn't have much of a shot until the announcement of the retirement. And then we can look at the North Carolina 9th district. This is another race that we're covering over. So the New York Times showing the Republican leading by 5%. That wasn't too important. Again, it just showed a little bit of conflicting data with the Survey USA poll, but it is expected considering that the Survey USA poll isn't too accurate. If you go back to 2008, that was the last time they had a real national presence in terms of presidential election polling, but midterm election polling, I'm not too sure about Survey USA's impact on those. But overall, looking at these polls, right now looking at the Texas Senate and Tennessee Senate races, those are good numbers for the GOP. They are leading consistently in all of these polls, so it doesn't look too well for the Democratic Party and possibly picking up here. Tennessee, surprisingly more Republican in the most recent poll than Texas, even though Tennessee could have gone Democratic by even 6 to 7% if the election was held months ago. So when looking at this data, when we're looking at it now, Ted Cruz has consistently led. His lead isn't really diminishing or gaining. He's just been pretty much static, just leveling off at a plus 5, plus 6 type of poll number, whereas Marsha Blackburn has increased. I mean, before Phil Bredesen led by 10% in one poll. Now Marsha Blackburn leads by 8%. Not saying the swing was necessarily 18%, but there definitely was a swing in the favor of the GOP there. So when we look at the Tennessee and Texas Senate races, good for the GOP. Arizona and New Jersey, good for the Democratic Party. Looking at these House races, some are good for the Democrats, some are good for the GOP. overall, a general conclusion is that this is going to be a very, very close and contested election season, and these polls don't really tell us much other than the races are going to get a little bit more solidified in terms of how these voters are voting, because going into the general election with very few undecided voters is a very good sign for whichever candidate is leading. But right now, we look at a state like Arizona, which has the Democrat leading, and there are a number of undecided voters compared to a state like Texas, which has less undecided voters. And shows a more consistent lead for the candidate there. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.